Hey everyone, it's Susan Pierce Thompson and welcome to the weekly vlog. This week the vlog is called The Jumping Off Point, and I'm going to talk with you this week about something that's very personal. If you don't like personal stuff, don't watch. Just a little warning. I do this sometimes because I like to stay current with you and current with myself, and yeah, there's a lot going on here that I want to share with you. And what I want to promise you is that although it may seem to drift off into topics that have nothing to do with food or bright line eating, I'm going to circle back around and connect it up. So for the first little bit here, I just want to share with you about my marriage for a little bit, if I may. I've been married 17 years. I got married when I was 24, which was pretty young for me. I just never imagined getting married so young, but I did. And our marriage over the last 17 years has been kind of a paradox, because on the one hand, you'll often hear me say things like, I'm one of the happiest married people I know, which in one sense is true. My husband's name is David. We have a tremendous amount of love for each other and a tremendous amount of respect for each other. And there's a lot of humor and laughter in our household because my husband is hilarious, which I love. Yeah, there's just a lot of goodness. We don't fight a bunch or argue, and there's a lot of unity in our house around the major topics like finances and sex and raising kids and stuff like that. And we have 3 beautiful daughters. You can find on the internet, the story of the March of Dimes, where, our daughters are twins, were born very premature, and they survived. There's only a 4% chance that they were going to survive and both be healthy, but they are. And then we had a 3rd daughter 3 years later. So we've got these 3 beautiful girls, and they're pretty young right now, 8, and 5. So that's one picture. On the other side, there's a way in which I've been unhappy in our marriage for a long time, and I now know that I think actually my husband has been too, in a different way. But my experience in this relationship is that I have yearned for more connection and more sharing. And I don't know if you've ever heard of the 5 love languages, but it's a way to, think about the different ways that people give and receive love. And my primary love language is by far words of appreciation, words of affection, compliments, those sorts of things. They land right in my heart, where other forms of love, they're nice, but they don't feel as central to me in my way of receiving love. And my husband is not a very verbose guy, and naturally, it doesn't usually dawn on him to pay a compliment. So I would go years sometimes between compliments. And actually, there was this thing that happened when we were living in Australia, where we got all dressed up. This was when I'd first lost my weight. So I was in a right-sized body for the first time in my adult life, other than briefly when I was doing crystal meth. But I was in a right-sized body, and I bought this dress by a designer in Sydney, Australia, and I got my hair done professionally, and I did my makeup for like over an hour. I never do this kind of thing. And he was in his fancy tuxedo, and we were about to go to this winter ball thing. It felt like we were getting dressed up for the Academy Awards, and he was looking so handsome, and we were ready to finally go. It was hours of getting ready, and I sort of brushed off his, thing and straightened his bow tie, and I was like, "You look so handsome." And he looked down at me and he said, "Great, you ready to go?" And I just kind of stood there like, is he going to tell me that I look nice? Like, I just lost all my weight. And so we were in the cab, and I was like really holding back tears. And I finally said, "David, could you tell me that I look nice?" And he said, "Well, not now with a gun to my head." And so we fought about that. And I said, "Please, it's like, I just feel starved for a compliment." And he said, I'm not going to say words that you're forcing me to say. Like, it just feels disingenuous, like a compliment is something you offer when it means something to you. And anyway, so we fought about that for years, actually. And anyway, there were lots of other ways that I was like, could we go to therapy? Could we do a workshop together? Here's a book. On relationships, could we read it together? And there was this sense in which we were sort of living these parallel lives, as we were sort of like great roommates with benefits. Like, we would have sex and we would run the household, but from my perception, like at the heart level, we weren't really connecting. And I tried over and over and over again throughout the years to invite him into connection. And I couldn't quite tell all that time whether he was refusing or whether he wasn't interested or whether he literally wasn't capable. Like, I know that my husband and I are so different, really different. I mean, you spend time with us and he's a great guy, I'm a great gal, but you'll notice like, wow, these two people are pretty different. We just are. And in my mind, over 17 years, I had different ways of framing that. Like, I've said things like, David and I are so different and it's beautiful because we're like the opposite diagonal columns of the Parthenon, and together we frame out so much space. Like, our mutually covered ground is immense. And because we're so different and we stand strong and parallel together, we together cover all this ground, and it's amazing. And, at other times I would feel like my husband and I are so different. Like, I feel like we're not matched. Like, it's not fundamentally a match. So fast forward, now I'm doing this Bright Line Eating thing and I'm traveling a bunch more than I ever used to. I was meeting people that are like living exciting lives and vibrant lives, and their whole world is about connection and about, like sucking the marrow out of life. And I've always been easily attracted to people. I love people, men, women, children, old, young, doesn't matter. I give and receive love very easily. And part of that for me is being very easily attracted to people. And over 17 years, I'd done a good job of keeping that separate and being faithful to my husband. And now it was starting to like not be so easy. And I did meet someone that I really wanted to have an affair with. And I reached a point where I decided I was going to. Like, we were going to plan a trip, and I was going to sleep with him. And luckily, I talked that through on another trip that I was on recently, out to Brighton Bush Hot Springs with the Food Revolution Network and John Robbins and Ocean Robbins. And they invited me there to speak at their workshop that they were holding. And one night in their cabin, I went into Michelle and Ocean Robbins' room. They're married, and I truly respect their partnership and their connection and their level of communication. And I said, I just want to talk with you. Can you talk with me? Actually, this was the first time I'd ever met Michelle. Ocean and I are very good friends. It was sort of a heavy conversation to have the first time I ever met his wife, Michelle. But anyway, I assumed that because he's so great, she would be great. And I just kind of trusted, and I let out all this stuff. And I'm like, I'm about to have an affair. And here's all the reasons why I feel like I need to. My soul is being called to this level of connection and expression. And it feels like I am willing for the first time to do that. Like, I am yearning so badly for that connection. And I'm like, we got 3 little kids. So I think what I'm going to do is just not tell David about it and do it. And probably keep doing it because, on trips, I'll just see this man and, and I think I've decided, like, that's what I'm going to do. And I had, like, totally rearranged my value core to make that okay, because it's what I so wanted. And, a lot of people who've known me for a long time, God bless them, I had shared this with a few people, and they were like, I can see why you feel that way. I know how long you've been in angst over, wanting so badly to connect with David and it not being there. And they basically said, I trust you to sort this out. And Ocean and Michelle were like, no, Susan, don't do that. God bless them. And I was like, because they said, how can we support you here? And what I said was, I actually want you to weigh in. That's how you can support me. Like, please weigh in. And they said, okay, well, since you're asking, we don't think you should do that. We think you should go back to your husband and be honest with him and tell him what's true for you. And I said, well, what if what's true for me is that I want a divorce? And they said, well, you'll find that out when you get there, but it sounds like you've got some sorting out to do. And what they said that landed with me most strongly was, Susan, you are not a person who can live in this world inauthentically. Like, think about that for a moment. They were like, honestly, how long is that going to last? The whole I'm not going to tell him thing. And I was like, oh, right. Like, not very long at all. So they're like, and then when it comes out, you're going to be left with the rubble of, you know, the betrayal and all that. They're like, we don't want that for you. And this Bright Line Eating movement needs you to be in integrity and authentic. And you have a world in which you have to show up and be ready to connect on an honest level with everybody at any moment. And I was like, oh, right. That's true for me. So Ocean said, what I would like to invite you to do is to slow things down with this other guy and then walk with honesty and integrity and consciousness with every breath you take and every step you take. And you will figure it out. So I said, okay. So I flew back on a red eye back to Rochester, New York. I got in the car with my husband and we drove for 7 hours to Ohio to pick up our new puppy that was finally ready to be picked up. So we had some time to talk. And I squared my shoulders to it, the whole thing, and I just let it all out. And what I said was, I'm not sure, David, anymore that we're compatible. I'm not sure that I can live in this marriage. I feel this calling and it's getting too loud for me to ignore. And I feel like I'm not willing to go back to sleep. I feel awake and alive and I'm not willing to go back to sleep. So I'm thinking that might mean we need a divorce. Or maybe we need to have a marriage where you let me go have relationships with other people and we stay together to raise our kids. I'm not sure, but I am not willing to go back to sleep. I feel awake. And he thought about that for a couple days. And he came back essentially and he said, I don't want to lose you. I want more than anything in the world to have our family and raise our kids together. And I'm ready to wake up with you. I don't necessarily know what that means or what that looks like. Show me. Tell me what to do. Let's read a book together. Let's get a coach. Let's go to therapy. Let's do workshops. And he put a standing appointment in his own smartphone on his calendar from 8 to 9 p.m., which is after the kids go to bed, repeating 7 days a week into infinity, love and appreciate Susan, for an hour every night. And he said, baby, I'm ready. Let's do this. Let's be married in a whole new way. That was Labor Day. And I want to bring that back to you and your Bright Line Eating journey, because what I know in life is that sometimes we get brought to a jumping off place, a jumping off point, and it can feel so hard to square your shoulders to it and to say, I am ready to face the truth and let the chips fall where they may. And that's something my dad always used to tell me when I was a little girl. He would say, Susan, tell the truth, just tell the truth, and let the chips fall where they may. Thanks, Dad. Such good advice. Words to live by. And sometimes the truth is, the way I'm living is not working. I've been finding ways to numb myself to that and to cope with that and to comfort myself despite that for years, maybe decades, maybe my whole life. In this case, for me, 17 years. And it can feel terrifying to stand and face the truth and let it be real. And then let everything else fall out exactly as it's going to, and to know that you might not like the way it falls out. It might be hard. The thought of raising, so just some background for me, I come from a life of divorce. My parents got divorced when I was a kid, and then my dad got remarried and divorced, remarried and divorced, remarried and divorced, and then remarried. I think that's the right number. And my mom got remarried and divorced and then remarried. So I saw a lot of marriage and divorce growing up. And with 3 little kids, you know, I did the whole shuttling back and forth between mom and dad's house as a kid. I didn't want to do that to my kids. So it was really hard to square my shoulders to, David, I'm about to sleep with another man and I can't stay married to you this way. And I refuse. I refuse to go back to sleep. I know I've asked in the past. Now I'm just telling you, like I'm out the door. So it was very hard to say those words. It can be very hard to square your shoulders to eating sugar and flour and unrestrained quantities of food is not working. I've been lying to myself all this time, and it's just not working. And I might have to take action that feels drastic to correct that. And I have no idea what lies on the other end of that decision. Unfortunately, we just don't get to see beyond the corner. That's the way the universe works. You just never get to. So if you're at the jumping off place with food, if you're at that point, I just want to say, trust. Trust. The universe has got your back. And you are stronger than you think you are. And consciousness and integrity and authenticity, awareness are always better than living asleep and suffering quietly. You have got this. This bright line eating thing is not easy. It is a way of life that is going to demand that you pony up in ways that probably feel scary, in ways that might feel beyond your ability to face it. But radical honesty has its benefits. And if the truth for you is that your way of eating is not serving you, but you're afraid that the gap between what's going to be expected of you in bright line eating is up here and what you feel ready to face is down here, I just invite you to step into that gap and let it catch you. And watch how somehow it lines up for you and settles out. The jumping off point is an amazing point, and we get there when we get there. It takes what it takes. Sometimes it's a long journey to get there. But I want to say, since Labor Day, my husband and I have had a marriage that I never even dreamed was possible. I honestly didn't know that we could be connected like this. I honestly didn't know that he was capable. I honestly didn't know that I was even ready for it. I didn't even know what was possible. And it's been hard. It's been very hard. I had to let go of that guy that I wanted to have an affair with. I've had to face the ways that I need to show up if I'm really going to be in connection with my husband. Which is scary for me too. Scarier than I thought it was going to be. And the rewards have been more wonderful than I ever dreamed of. And I feel amazing. And in my experience, the jumping off point, if we surrender to it fully and we up level our game the way the universe is calling us to, that jumping off place is usually very quickly, if we face it, filled with a lightness and a freedom and a happiness and a sense of peace and assurance that all is fundamentally well. I hope you're at the jumping off point, because if you're there, congratulations. If you're squaring your shoulders to it, congratulations. It takes courage, and I'm proud of you. And if you're not there yet, look for it. Watch for it. Because it's an amazing thing to decide, for real, I'm not going to live asleep anymore. I'm not going to live asleep anymore. So welcome to your life. Welcome to the jumping off point. I'm Susan Peirce Thompson. That's the weekly vlog. If you have something you want me to address in the weekly vlog, just send it in. I'm at susan@brightlineeating.com. I'll see you next week.